The brutal 1947 murder of Elizabeth Short, forever immortalized as the Black Dahlia, remains one of the most haunting and unresolved cases in American criminal history. Her shocking death, marked by grotesque mutilation and theatrical posing of her body, captivated a nation and transformed her into an icon of mystery, tragedy, and media exploitation. Set against the backdrop of post-war Los Angeles, a city bursting with Hollywood dreams and hidden corruption, the case drew nationwide attention and has inspired countless theories, books, films, and investigations. More than 7 decades later, the Black Dahlia case continues to intrigue both professional detectives and amateur sleuths, standing as a grim testament to a young woman's stolen future and a justice system that failed to deliver answers. The Black Dahlia case remains one of the most infamous and chilling unsolved murders in American history. The brutal killing of a young woman in Los Angeles in 1947 has inspired decades of speculation, books, films, and conspiracy theories. The case has captivated the public imagination, highlighting the darker side of Hollywood's golden era. The victim was 22-year-old Elizabeth Short, an aspiring actress originally from Massachusetts. Her body was discovered on the morning of January 15, 1947, in a vacant lot in the Leimert Park neighborhood of Los Angeles. The discovery shocked the nation and led to a media frenzy. What shocked investigators and the public was the gruesome nature of her death. Elizabeth's body had been severed at the waist, completely drained of blood, and posed in a grotesque and theatrical fashion. The precision of the cut suggested a perpetrator with medical knowledge. The mutilation indicated a level of sadism and planning that pointed to a calculated killer. The case quickly became a sensation. Elizabeth Short had been reported missing for several days before the discovery of her body. She had last been seen alive on January 9, 1947, at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. Witnesses recalled her waiting in the lobby, possibly for someone she was scheduled to meet. The media quickly dubbed the murder victim the Black Dahlia, a play on the title of the popular film noir, The Blue Dahlia, and a reference to her dark hair and penchant for black clothing. The nickname added a layer of mystique to the already sensational case. Press sensationalism played a huge role in shaping public perception of the case. Newspapers, especially the Los Angeles Examiner, were accused of exploiting the case to boost circulation. The media's portrayal often overshadowed the victim's humanity. Elizabeth Short was portrayed as a mysterious, sexually promiscuous figure by some media outlets, which many critics later viewed as victim-blaming and deeply unfair. These portrayals have been challenged by modern researchers seeking to restore her dignity. Police were initially overwhelmed by the public interest and the number of false leads. More than 150 men were questioned, and countless tips poured in from across the country. The sheer volume of information made it difficult to discern credible leads. At least 60 people confessed to the murder, including some who were not even in California at the time of the crime. None of these confessions held up under scrutiny. The false confessions added to the confusion and hampered the investigation. The LAPD struggled with a lack of solid evidence. There were no fingerprints, no witnesses to the crime, and the killer had clearly taken steps to avoid leaving clues. The meticulous nature of the crime scene suggested a calculated effort to evade detection. A week after the body was discovered, a man claiming to be the killer sent a package to the Los Angeles Examiner. It included Elizabeth's birth certificate, business cards, and personal photos. The package was carefully cleaned with gasoline, just like the body, further suggesting that the killer was meticulous and possibly had knowledge of forensics. Despite receiving this chilling package, police were unable to extract any usable fingerprints or DNA from the items. Among the many suspects was Dr. George Hodel, a wealthy and well-connected physician with a scandalous past. His own son, Steve Hodel, later accused him of being the killer. George Hodel came under suspicion in the 1940s due to his connections to surrealist artists, interest in sadism, and history of sexually abusing his daughter Tamar. In 1950, the LAPD even bugged Hodel's home, recording him saying things like, "Supposin' I did kill the Black Dahlia. They couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary because she's dead. Despite this, Hodel was never charged. He fled the country shortly thereafter, living in the Philippines for many years. Steve Hodel, a former LAPD detective, published a series of books presenting circumstantial evidence against his father, including photo analysis and potential links to other unsolved murders. While Steve's theory is compelling to some, others argue it lacks definitive proof and relies too heavily on speculation and selective evidence. Another popular theory centers around the possibility that Elizabeth Short's killer was part of a larger network of corrupt individuals, possibly involving police or Hollywood insiders. Some researchers have pointed to the close proximity of the body dump site to Hodel's former residence and other notable locations in LA as possibly symbolic or intentional. Others believe the killer may have been someone Elizabeth had dated or trusted. She was known to socialize with various men and was believed to be seeking a way into the film industry. Elizabeth's personal life was marked by instability. She had lived in several cities, often moving from one temporary job or residence to another. Despite rumors and speculation, no definitive evidence has surfaced proving that Elizabeth was involved in sex work, contrary to early police and media claims. The FBI eventually became involved in the case but found no strong leads. Their files on Elizabeth Short are now publicly accessible and show the wide scope of the investigation. Some have compared the Black Dahlia case to later murders with similar hallmarks, posing, mutilation, or symbolic elements, but none have yielded clear connections. One theory suggests that Elizabeth was killed by someone attempting to emulate surgical or artistic techniques, possibly influenced by Hollywood imagery or modernist art. Others propose the killer had a background in military medicine or autopsy procedures, given the clean and deliberate nature of the body bisection. Over the years, many authors have tried to solve the mystery, with varying degrees of credibility. Some books have been dismissed as sensationalist or poorly sourced. The murder has inspired numerous fictional retellings, most famously James Ellroy's novel, The Black Dahlia, which was later adapted into a film by Brian De Palma. Ellroy himself had a personal connection to the case. His own mother was murdered when he was a child, fueling his lifelong interest in unsolved crimes. Despite the mythologizing of the Black Dahlia story, at its core is a real person, Elizabeth Short, whose life and death deserve remembrance and justice. Memorials have been held in her honor, and modern true crime communities continue to advocate for renewed investigation and transparency. Advances in DNA technology offer a glimmer of hope. Some believe that if properly preserved evidence still exists, forensic genealogy could identify the killer. However, much of the original evidence has reportedly been lost, contaminated, or mishandled, a common problem in pre-digital era investigations. The case is officially still open with the LAPD, though it is considered cold. Periodic reviews of the file have yielded no new breakthroughs. In recent years, amateur sleuths and podcasters have brought fresh attention to the case, sometimes uncovering forgotten documents or interviewing previously overlooked witnesses. Critics argue that the obsession with the case sometimes borders on voyeuristic, focusing too much on the horror and not enough on the victim's humanity. Ethical, true crime storytelling about the Black Dahlia emphasizes her ambitions, her kindness, and the systemic failures that left her vulnerable. Elizabeth Short's legacy also underscores broader themes about gender, media exploitation, and the treatment of women in 1940s America. Her image has been appropriated in everything from art to horror culture, often divorced from the reality of her life and death. As time passes, public interest in the Black Dahlia case remains strong, fueled by a fascination with mystery, tragedy, and the dark side of Los Angeles history. Scholars and historians continue to re-examine the cultural impact of the case, exploring how it shaped crime reporting, urban myth, and collective memory. For those seeking closure, the hope persists that science, persistence, or even a deathbed confession may someday bring answers. Until then, the Black Dahlia case remains a haunting reminder of a young woman whose life was cut short and whose story continues to echo through the decades. Elizabeth Short was more than a mystery or a media sensation. She was a daughter, a dreamer, and a person whose story deserves truth and dignity. Citing circumstantial evidence and recorded statements. Leslie Dillon. A bellhop and aspiring writer, Dillon became a suspect after corresponding with LAPD psychiatrist Dr. J. Paul DeRiver. Dillon's detailed knowledge of the crime raised suspicions, but he was ultimately released due to lack of evidence. Mark Hansen. A Hollywood nightclub owner, Hansen's name was found embossed on an address book mailed to the press by someone claiming to be the killer. He had known Elizabeth Short and had reportedly made advances toward her, which she rejected. Robert Red Manley, a traveling salesman, Manley was the last person known to have seen Elizabeth Short alive. He was extensively questioned and passed multiple polygraph tests, eventually being cleared as a suspect. Walter Bailey. A surgeon who lived near the crime scene, Bailey was posthumously considered a suspect due to his medical expertise and proximity. However, there was no direct evidence linking him to the crime. George Knowlton, accused by his daughter, Janice Knowlton, who claimed to have recovered memories of witnessing him murder Elizabeth Short. Her claims were not supported by evidence, and Knowlton died in 1962. Patrick S. O'Reilly, a medical doctor with a criminal record, including assaulting women. He was known to frequent the same nightclub as Elizabeth Short and had connections to Mark Hansen. Jack Anderson Wilson. A career criminal and arsonist, Wilson was considered a suspect after making statements about the murder. He died in a fire before he could be thoroughly investigated. Joseph A. Dumas, an Army corporal who confessed to the murder but was later found to have been on his military base at the time of Elizabeth Short's death, effectively ruling him out as a viable suspect. The Black Dahlia case endures not only because of its gruesome details, but because it represents a deep cultural wound, an unresolved tragedy buried beneath decades of speculation, scandal, and sensationalism. Elizabeth Short was more than the nickname that history gave her. She was a real person with hopes, flaws, and dreams that were tragically cut short. As time passes and evidence fades, the chances of solving her murder grow slimmer. Yet the story still resonates, reminding us of the need for justice, the dangers of media distortion, and the enduring mystery that can live on in the shadow of unanswered questions. Until definitive truth emerges, if it ever does, the legacy of the Black Dahlia will continue to haunt the annals of American true crime.